What's up, friends? Hope you all are staying creative. Today I'm going to break down my track Energizer Quattro. It's the third release on my label You Dig Records, and if you want the project file, it is available on my website. So if you're trying to look at this in like microscopic detail, you can do that. So there's a link in the description below. So yeah, without further ado, let's get right into it. Alright, so a little backstory. Last year I went to Sunwaves for the first time. It's a music festival in Romania, and there's 4 stages, and I felt really inspired by the stuff that I was hearing at stage 4. Really cool stuff, a lot of like breaks and like these future sounds, electro, minimal. I guess that's what you would kind of call it, like future minimal electro breaks or some shit. But I made this track shortly after coming back from that festival, so yeah, it was very much inspired by what I was hearing there. So as usual, what I'll do is I'll just go through each element in this track, break it down, and just kind of explain what's going on. So let's get right into it. So if you haven't listened to the track, I'll put a link below so you can go listen to it, come back, and then proceed with the analysis. So let's just start with the low frequencies. I have 2 kind of different bass patterns here. There's the intro, which sounds like this. I'm going to solo this. A lot more space. There's not much of like a constant bass line, but then it gets to like the main part of the track, and we have the big Moog bass. So starting with the kick, I have a few different layers that's going on here. First, we just have kind of the punch of the kick. That's what this is. Just a kick sample, got a little bit of compression on it just to give it a bit more punch. That's why I have a little bit of slower attack, so I'm emphasizing that transient. And then I have the 808 part of the kick. This is just the sub, it's a sub tail. So with an 808 you have that initial hit, and then you have like this subby tail. So that's what I'm simulating here with operator. So I just have a sine wave, and I have a very slow attack. And I'm just playing this F note. So combined with the kick, it's just playing on the same notes as the kick. So that's giving it that 808 feel. And then I have a click just going on top. So this click is giving the kick a bit more presence. So without it, the kick's a lot more like dull, and this just pushes it into the mix just a little harder. So it has a little bit more impact. So in the intro, I have some call and response going on with the bass lines. So one part of it is Serum, which is doing this. So it's just very simple bass pattern. And I made that patch in Serum right here. So we got 2 wavetables, these very digital sounding wavetables on Monster, and then Solid Phase. And then I have an envelope right here going to the filter and the resonance. So it's actually, yeah, a very simple patch. There's no effects going on here. Both of these are just set to mono. And it's just, yeah, just like a very digitally kind of bass line. And I'm taking out a little bit of sub, got that driving through a saturator. So then I have FabFilter Pro MB here, which is sidechaining just the low frequencies to the kick drum. So actually I have to play the kick right here. With Pro MB, I'm able to sidechain just a certain band of frequencies. And actually I have 2 sidechains going on here. I have this, which is doing the multi-band sidechain. And then over here I have the full the broadband sidechain. So I sometimes like to mix and match and have like two different types of sidechains that are doing like a little bit of compression, but they're each doing a little bit of like a different thing. So that's what's going on here. One is multi-band, one is full band. And over here I'm taking out some of the high end. And then I got that going through a reverb. And on the reverb, I'm taking out the low frequencies here with this Valhalla. You see I got the low cut set to 260, so I'm not putting any reverb on the sub. It's just on the harmonics that you hear. And that's it. That's it for the Serum bass. The other one is from the 303. Got a Roland TB03 over there. So I use that to make this response on solo. Just, you know, a little fun little pattern. And over here I'm also just taking out a little bit of the sub, compressing it. So if we solo this, just taking off a little bit of that top end, because you can get a little peaky. So that's what I'm bringing that down with a quick attack on this compressor. Then I have some reverb. This is like one of my favorite presets on Valhalla Vintage, which is a large wood room. I don't know why I like it, but I just do. And then that's being sidechained to the kick. So nothing fancy going on there. And then it comes to the big fucking bass, which is the Moog. I love the Moog. That's the Moog Minotaur. That's the thing that created this monstrosity of a bass line. So I mean, a lot of that is just the richness of the Moog and just sounds amazing. I really don't have to do much to it. And yeah, it's a very simple pattern. It's like 3 notes that I'm playing. So all I'm doing is just cutting out some of the super high frequencies here, which is probably just like, I was just cutting out noise in my system. And then I have that going through this echo. And if you're wondering why I have it in this audio effect rack, this is essentially, I'm creating a send and return within a channel. I'm doing parallel processing here. So I have a dry chain. This is the signal without any reverb. Then I have a signal with 100% wet reverb that I can just mix in. Very similar, same thing as if I was doing it here, but I'm just doing it within the channel itself. So I have a Valhalla echo. Then I have reverb, same thing, doing that send and return thing within the channel. And then I'm sidechaining that whole thing to the kick. So very little processing at all, really. But that Moog, it just sounds amazing. So I don't have to do much to it besides some reverb and delay. And then there's nothing on this entire low frequency group. So yeah, very minimal processing, which by the way, I was going through this project a little before filming this video just to refresh my mind as to like what I did and stuff. And I noticed that there's like very little processing. Like I think I actually forgot to like fully like mix this down, because I noticed like a lot of drums and stuff didn't have any reverb on it. But also like it just sounded to me, I don't know, not to like toot my own horn, but I think the mix sounds great. I've listened to it on some like really nice systems, and it just sounds good. So I don't know, maybe adding the reverbs and stuff would have actually just taken away from the rawness of the sound. I don't know, but anyway, the moral of the story is you really don't need to go hard with processing, as long as if you have really good sounds, then you don't have to do much in the mixing department. And I've said this in probably like half my videos, but yeah. Never hurts to say it again, so yeah. Alright, so I noticed while editing the video that I actually forgot to cover 2 parts of the bass line, so I'm going to do that now after the fact. So what I forgot to cover is that this Moog bass right here I have this same one just duplicated and then pitched up an octave. And that just gives just a little bit more presence and harmonics to the bass line. You can hear it faintly. And I have it turned down quite a bit too. -27 on this pitched up one, and then -2 on this. And then the other bass line, this one is just very minor, just comes in every so often, but it's a little square wave bass. Very simple bass right there. And it just adds a little bit of groove. It's just a little, almost like pretty much a bass fill, I guess you can call it. So yeah, that was it. So yeah, that is it for the bass. That's all the low frequencies. Let's go down to the drums. Drums, we got a really fat snare here. The snare is made up of a couple components. You got this very like raw breakbeat old school snare. Another raw breakbeat old school snare. And then more of like a clap, just a traditional clap sound, but also kind of raw sounding. But together, they sound like that. I can mute them. I don't really have much processing on the individual drum itself. Just on this snare, I have a bit of EQ to clean it up. And then on this entire just snare group, I have a bit of EQ, taking out some of 1300 hertz. It's a little bit harsh. And then here I just have a reverb, just some Valhalla, back on this large wood room, that preset again. And then the Valhalla is actually going into a drum bus. So I'm just adding some saturation and distortion to the reverb. So without it, it sounds like that. With it, it just brings out the reverb. So I like to use this technique when I want the reverb to be tight but still sound big. So, if you use like a drum bus or some sort of saturator, it just beefs up the reverb. And then this is going to a utility, which is just doing some volume automation on that part of the track. And then this Valhalla right here, which is also just another large wood room, that is actually, for the most part, it's turned off, but just in these little sections of the track, I'm bringing up the reverb. This is a breakdown, just to add a little bit more space there. Next, I have this 808 open hi-hat that plays just in a few sections of the song. Really simple, literally no processing. Yeah, just a very dry open hi-hat sound. Then over here, we have this loop. This is just a nice, like, bouncy hi-hat loop. I like it. And then yeah, no processing somehow. See, like I told you, I'm light with processing, but like this track is like extra light on the processing for me. Like I don't think I've ever gone this bare bones, but I kind of like it. It's kind of cool. Then there's this crunchy perk. I like it. That just adds a little bit of flavor to the groove. And yeah, I think I just grabbed that from some sample pack. Actually, from Vengeance sample pack. Shout out to Vengeance. That's an old one. OG sample pack right there. Next, we got this background perk. Just adding a little bit of texture to and ambiance to the background. Then over here I have these zaps. I really like the energy that these zaps bring. It's just a little zap sample. I'm playing a pattern with it right here. And I have that going through a little phaser flanger. And then we have some hats here. Nothing crazy. Yeah, just hats put into a sampler. Right here, same thing here. Kind of a wonky hat. Got another open hi-hat here. Just another 808 open hi-hat. And then I have just a couple fills here and there, just some like kind of breaky fills. So and then over here I have that same fill, but it just has a lot of like reverb and, or just a lot of delay on it, no reverb. And actually I have this sidechain to itself, just so that the delay doesn't really play. It's like super compressed when the actual sample's playing. But as soon as that sample stops, then the delay just like blooms and, you know, becomes alive. And then on the entire drum group, I have the drum bus plugin. Not doing any drive or crunch, but just doing a little bit of dampening in the high frequencies. And then by default, just by it being on, it's doing like saturation and compression and stuff. One of my favorite features about drum bus is the dampening of the high frequencies. It just makes it sound more raw, a little more analog. Takes away some of that like harsh digitalness, I guess you could say. But just harshness, whether it's digital or analog. And then I have that going into a glue compressor, just a little bit of parallel processing here at 37%. Same thing with the drum bus. Just have that at 19. And then I got the vocal here. This is from Blade Runner.
Get up. Do your fucking job.
I used Isotope RX to extract the vocal from that scene. And just a little bit some EQ, taking out some low mids, compression just to even out the vocal, because as you can see, it's quite dynamic. It's not a very, it's not very consistent in volume. So I'm using a compressor to even that out. Got some delay on it, and then some reverb. And then over here, I have a pad. This comes from the Arturia Prophet. It's just like one of my favorite presets, which is the JMB opening pad. So I'm playing just some like random chords. I have like a C minor chord. I think that's C minor. Going into, looks like a D minor chord. And then that's going into a, I guess a G minor chord. Yeah. So, but the magic really comes from all the filter automation. I have a bunch of automation. So all that automation is what gives it just a bunch of movement, and that preset itself has like a delay in it, and it sounds really nice. So that's the same thing that's happening here on this channel. Just such a longer, section of music. So you got same like the C minor, I believe, D minor, then you got C minor, then just like a G and an A sharp for some reason. I'm not like great with music theory, but this I just played out. I just played it out on my keyboard. Didn't really even make much edits, just sounded good as is. And then I just went ham with some filter automation here. In terms of processing, just EQing out some harsh low mid frequencies, and then I have a reverb and then some volume automation here. And then a couple effects, just like this downlifter here. You hear that every now and then. Then I have this uplifter effect. And then in the break, around 4 minutes, I have this like 80s kind of synth come in. So that's just the Jupiter 8, which, you know, if you want 80s shit, just go to the Jupiter. Like, it's one of the best machines synths from that era. Juno's pretty good, but Jupiter is, like, in my opinion, the best 80s synth machine. At least that I have in my collection. So, yeah, so it's just this bass lead preset, which is funny because it's not even a bass. I have this filter mini thing, this Arturia filter mini, which is, I don't even know if that's doing anything. Doesn't really seem like it's actually doing much because the cutoff frequency is all the way up, so never mind. Then I have this EQ, just some echo, and then reverb. So yeah, pretty simple. And then on the master, all I have is some ozone, which is just giving it some stereo width in the high frequencies here, just kind of above 6K, and then a little bit of width between like 1 and 6K. I have this V clip, which is just a clipper, just giving it a little bit of perceived loudness, and then I have FabFilter L2. So overall, yeah, very light processing on this mix. Probably the least processed track I think I've ever put out. I think, like, real talk. So, yep, peace out.